McDonald's Treasureland Adventure. Unlike McKids on NES or Global Gladiators on the Genesis, this was your chance to actually play as Ronald McDonald. Originally, I bought this game for the box art. The bright and colorful cover caught my eye. It has a cartoony style, and it's a perfect item for any McDonald's enthusiast. The game was developed by Treasure and published by Sega in 1993. Just so you know, the fact that the game deals with Treasure is just a coincidence. The company was well known for making great titles for the Sega Genesis such as Dynamite Headdy, Alien Soldier, and Gunstar Heroes, amongst others. Like so many games, the point of each level is to get to the goal at the end, while avoiding enemies and traps along the way. And, as stated on the back of the box, the objective of the entire game is to collect all the pieces of the map and obtain a hidden treasure. The controls for Ronald are responsive and work well. They give you the option to change the button configuration in the menu, but it works fine on the given setting. The A button releases a chain of scarves that can latch onto the rectangular shaped hooks so Ronald can get to higher platforms. The B button shoots out Ronald's sparkling magic attack, and the C button is used to jump, which works well for a platformer. There's never any times where you feel like you died due to poor jumping controls. Ronald's health meter is represented by gems. You start with a limited amount of health gems that can increase as you play. When you kill enemies, they sometimes give off these gems, which refill the meter. Combined with that, you can also get flowers to help restore the life meter. All this extra health makes it fairly difficult to be killed. A few sections of the game do get difficult, however, when you have to perform some rather involved platform jumping. But even that's not a problem, because if you fall, Ronald is rescued by a bunch of balloons, which you can control, and use them to float past any potentially hazardous areas. If that's not enough, there's also McDonald's logos that'll give you extra continues, Tetris-style mini-games where you can get more power-ups, and an item store on every level where you can purchase gems, lives, and other items, making the game incredibly simple. The best thing this game has going for it are the graphics. They're bright, colorful, and inviting. This is a place you'd want to visit if it were real. The backgrounds are all detailed and well done. The first stage, Magical Forest, is reminiscent of Green Hill Zone from Sonic the Hedgehog, and it gives you that awesome Genesis feeling right from the get-go. The second stage is the Magical Town, which seems poorly named, since most of it takes place aboard a train. There's also the Magical Sea and the Magical Moon. Absolutely no thought went into naming the stages. The game has a diverse array of original enemies that you wouldn't expect. There's little gnomes, sumo wrestlers that cause earthquakes, and even female gymnasts that toss Ronald around as if he were a rag doll. There's also this knight-looking enemy with a cape that I think you only see once the entire game, which is sorta cool. But the most notable enemies are the ballerinas with pink rabbit ears who dance to Swan Lake. Yeah, the song from Dracula with Bela Lugosi. Treasureland Adventure has ghosts, a sunken pirate ship, and even an evil tree. But this is by far the creepiest part of the game. Let's talk about the bosses. The first boss in the game is a giant tomato that shoots out rays of energy and stomps down mini tomatoes to the ground floor. I tried hitting him with my magic and even my scarves, but no matter what I tried, I couldn't figure out how to injure him. I fought him for a while, and I have to admit, I was stumped. However, after some trial and error, I figured out that you have to let him suck up one of Ronald's gems, which gives the boss a stomach ache. This is when he becomes vulnerable to hits. At first I felt this was too cryptic to try and figure out, especially for a first boss. It would be like if you were playing Mario 3 and had to give your mushroom to the Koopa Kid before you could injure him. Why would you ever think to do that? You wouldn't. Well, a little bit later I found out that I had passed by the Hamburglar, who I need to speak with first. He gives Ronald the advice he needs on how to defeat the boss. That might seem like it gives the Hamburglar a purpose to be there, but I think the famous McDonald's characters could have been given a better role where they were more well incorporated. Some of them, like Grimace for example, just felt like a tacked-on cameo appearance. I think they should have let you switch between the characters, having each one playable with unique abilities, something similar to Bucky O'Hare or Castlevania III Dracula's Curse on NES. All of the boss fights in the game involve giving them a gem to swallow before they can be injured. The fights are really monotonous and uninteresting. The only one that's decent is the final boss fight because it's a bit more involved. Here, you have to go through doors so that Ronald is on a higher level than the boss in order to get him to swallow the gem. Speaking of boss fights, I was unhappy with the pirate battle. Why couldn't it have been Captain Crook? That would have been a perfect place to utilize such an iconic McDonald's character, and yet they replace him with some weird giant-lipped freak. I felt the same way about the boss on the moon level. It's an alien, so why didn't they use Cosmic? Part of me feels like it's nice that Treasure tried to do something original, but mainly I just feel disappointed. It's a McDonald's game. It should feel like one. After you defeat the final boss of the game, you get a cutscene where the alien is crying for you not to steal his treasure. Ronald assures him that he has no interest in taking the treasure. He just wants to go home with his friends. This is beyond stupid. If Ronald didn't want the treasure, then why didn't he just stay home? There's a cutscene right before you travel to the moon. In it, Ronald asks where the treasure is. Imagine you wanted something so badly that you had to travel to the moon to get it. Then, once you get there, you decide that, you don't even want it. Yeah, I don't think so. It seems to me like somebody changed the ending at the last minute because they realized it would look bad if the company's mascot character was motivated by greed. Anyway, as for the audio in the game, the music reminds me a lot of Sonic. The track from the Magical City level sounds similar to the Marble Garden Zone from Sonic 3. There is a password system, so even if you lost all your continues, you can just re-enter the password and keep playing. It should be mentioned the way the password works, it's a nice easy 4-image system. So many games have terribly long, overly complicated password systems, so it's nice to see something simple. My main complaint with this game is that it has no imagery that makes you think of McDonald's food. Why is Ronald's life meter indicated by gems and flowers? How about hamburgers and french fries? In any other game, that would just feel like a cheap product placement, but this is a McDonald's game. You expect there to be fast food imagery everywhere, and there's none. Why wouldn't they want to advertise their food in the game? That seems like a huge marketing failure and a missed opportunity. There could have at least been fast food related enemies and bosses, or if they didn't want to portray their food in a negative light by having the foods be villains, Ronald's power-ups could have at least been food. While I mostly like the game, I can't help but feel like many of the McDonald's properties, like the food and the characters, could have had a much bigger presence. Honestly, it feels like it was originally going to be another game entirely, but then they threw in some recognizable McDonald's characters just to give it more market value. Outside of the fact that this stars McDonald's characters, there's not too much that makes it stand out from other games of the era. It has the same hook and jump control scheme as Magical Quest starring Mickey Mouse on Super Nintendo, and Treasure later expanded upon that control style with Dynamite Headdy in 1994, so there's other similar games available. Outside of wanting to look at some cool Genesis graphics, this game has a very, very low level of replay value. It's a lot of fun to play once because you don't know what to expect, but I can't imagine playing through it again. Also, as I said before, after you beat the game, you find out that even Ronald doesn't care about the goal, which is collecting treasure. If Ronald doesn't care, why should you? There are a lot of positive aspects to the game, such as solid controls and creative backgrounds. And I like that they tried to infuse some originality into it, instead of just hashing out exactly what you'd expect it to be. I really wanted to love this game because I was such a fan of McDonaldland characters as a kid, but overall, it just comes off as a run-of-the-mill Genesis platformer. If you grew up eating Happy Meals and you can't get enough of McDonald's-related merchandise, then pick it up. But if you're looking for a killer gaming experience, there's better Treasure games to be playing. If there's one thing to take away from playing this game, and from listening to my review, let it be the disturbing imagery of Ronald McDonald bouncing on the heads of ballerinas with pink rabbit ears.